guys, we have a clinical psychologist, Kelly McFarlane, today with Care Center, and we want to discuss a pressing topic, online learning challenges that students, parents, and educators may face during COVID-19 pandemic. So Kelly, thank you for
Hi.
being here with us.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay, great. So let's go straight into it. So we're going to first look at what are the views of students concerning online learning and some of the challenges that students face.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that I've heard in the news, I mean, just anecdotally, because there isn't much research that's circulating as yet about specifics in terms of what children are experiencing. So I can only speak anecdotally. And I think a lot of what they're experiencing is, one, of course, we know that not every child has access to the laptops and smartphones and so on, even internet. So there's some of those logistical issues. Not every child has the privacy of a space where they can call their own to do their schoolwork. And some children do require a little more supervision. Not all children are comfortable or thrive when they're learning on their own in their own space. A lot of kids do need a little more guidance. Another thing I would peg as an issue is the issue of parents being sort of right over your shoulder in the room. Yes, because that could cause some anxiety. And parents, it's understandable that parents really want to see their kids succeed and see their kids do the right things and behave right, get things correct that they think is easy and they should get. And sometimes we can get caught up with that and say, but you know the answer to this. So even like when I do psychoeducational evaluations, Alicia,
right,
I don't allow parents to stay in the room unless there's a specific situation that I do need the parents to be somewhere that the child could see. But for the most part, when parents do stay in the room or they are around, they say, yes, you know the answer. They try to help their child. It's just instinctively they try to help their child, but that is not how we learn. None of us, we didn't learn like that in school.
No.
We had to learn independently. We had to let the teachers do their job. So those are some of the issues that I, from sort of a psychological and developmental and logistical perspective, would say that children are experiencing.
Yeah, and Kelly, I'd also like to add, being an educator and, just experiencing this online platform teaching, just the receptivity of the students, the engagement, it's challenging, as well as you're not really getting that, that communication with the students. When you're in a classroom setting, you can actually see these students, and we can't force a child to turn on their camera, right?
Yes.
So we're not able to see their, as you would know, body language and that communication. Non-verbal communication is so important. So if I could be teaching and then I'm not sure if that child or if the students are really engaged, or if they're understanding, or if they're even there. They just log on, and that's some of the things we've been experiencing as teachers. They log on, and then when we call to do we're trying to incorporate group work, and we're calling on that student, and they're not there, right? So we've been experiencing some of those challenges. So how can we gauge their focus or reduce distraction? How can we do that?
Yeah. For those same reasons, that's very difficult to do, but it will reflect in their grades. It will reflect in their performance. It will reflect in whatever type of evaluations you do throughout the term. Not just the end of term exam, but whatever the homework and so on. And what my advice would be, just in a nutshell, is that teachers, as you you know your students, you know their usual performance. I know that some students, though, are going into classes with new teachers, so they may not know exactly what to expect in terms of a child's usual performance. But when you do see, if for those who can't see things reflected, changes reflected in the grades, have a conversation with mom or dad or whoever the child's guardian is, and try to find out, what is going on in the environment when they are supposed to be in class, and what we can do to limit any potential distractions. And why are some of the reasons that children do go off camera? Because they can use virtual backgrounds if it's the background that they're hiding. What do you
Yes.
know what some of those reasons are? I'd be curious.
Yes, yes. So some of them, when I spoke to one student in particular, they said that just their self-confidence, they're just not feeling comfortable, just knowing that they have brothers and sisters or siblings that are around them within in that room, just being able to listen. And if a teacher is
Yeah.
asking them a question, you would hear
Yes.
like siblings laughing in the background. So you don't know
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
Or like, so it's just their confidence and
Yeah.
just being in a space where they have that. It's not a class setting. It's
Yes.
it's just distracting.
So you see, that child has a much bigger problem than miss being able to engage with miss visually. That child has too much distraction. So chances are, as they are off of camera, you again, like you said, you can't tell if they are engaged, and likely brother and sister somewhere around distracting them. They feel nervous about answering questions because they're being laughed at. They're not even hearing a lot of what you're saying. And
Right.
that's why it's ideal for kids to have a space to do their lessons for them, a space that's theirs. But I know that's not possible
Kids.
with everybody. So it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah,
Definitely.
for sure. But as you want, just to go back, what you said about some mitigation steps for the teachers to engage parents, find out what are some of the things causing these students to be distracted. Some concerns were that teachers are now working overtime. So it's like they already have a lot of work in terms of assessments outside of the working hours where you're teaching and engaging students. But then now you have to now look at other avenues to connect more time allocation, this time commitment.
Yes.
Teachers
Yeah.
feel as if they're just working overtime 24-hour clock, and it's very, very draining and challenging for them. So what would you suggest for
Yeah.
teachers who are
You
in
see,
this situation?
this is something that a lot of the general workforce is facing, because a lot of people who are working remotely now feel like there's a lot more expected of them, and that their workloads are heavier. So you've got a lot of organizations dealing with things like this. As I know it, teachers' jobs usually surpass the classroom because they have to correct homework, they have to grade exams, they have to write exams. But added to that now is the task of learning a new method of teaching and uploading, downloading, creating web lessons, and so on. So there is a bit of a curve, a bit of a process that in terms of kind of getting adjusted to this new normal for teaching, that it is my hope would get better and better as we kind of fall into it easier, unless we quarantine stops and everything is back to normal.
Right.
But teachers, apart from that, teachers are often heavily dependent on and have large expectations placed on them by parents, by the school board, and by the larger society, and that could create a lot of pressure. So my advice, what I think is that teachers do need to impose boundaries and make sure that they are looking after their work-life balance. Teachers are also humans like you and I and everybody else, and they too are coping with the anxieties and frustrations and the fears and the uncertainty and all of that comes with being in a pandemic. All right, not seeing friends and family, the restrictions, loss of things that you usually do for leisure to help reduce stress, all of that, teachers are also experiencing those things. But if And even some teachers are missing being in the same space with their
Yes, for
students, you
sure.
know.
That's
So they
critical.
also miss their kids, you know.
Yeah.
So teachers are kind of battling with a lot with regards to this. But you know, again, you know, strict boundaries for work-life balance. Have a cutoff time, you know, put structure, you know, keep structure in your day. You have a time to get up and do your work, just like before, whatever type of time you would allocate to write exams, mark exams, etc. And as much as you can, with the exception of peak, very peak periods like exam
Mhm.
time and so on, as much as you can, switch off. Switch
Yeah.
off at the end of the day, whatever your end of days, whether it's 5 o'clock or 6 or 4, switch off and don't open the emails and the messages, and switch off and give yourself that time, because you can't be creative, you can't be productive if you're very, very tired. And of course, if a teacher finds that they are particularly stressed out and not coping, then they should definitely, you know, talk to a professional to help them figure out, you know, what is actually happening and how they're being affected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As well as how they can even implement some of these advice or suggestions that you
Yeah,
would have suggested. So,
definitely. Yeah.
so basically, what we have spoken about thus far, it's just
Hmm.
really the challenges that students face, teachers face, and what about parents now? So we can
Yeah.
just look a little bit of how this online learning is affecting
Hmm.
parents.
Well, just as you were saying, you know, some um, teachers, as a teacher, you don't always get to see whether your child is, your student is online, if they're engaged. Parents do have these anxieties as well. Is my child really focusing when they're in class? Are they not
Yeah.
going on Instagram? And for this reason, a lot of parents feel, I don't know where this comes from, but a lot of parents feel the need to sit in class with their kids,
Yeah.
something that teachers are really frustrated by. But they feel that it would help the child to do that. And the issue that creates for the parent, forget about the issue for the child and the teacher, but I mean, not forget about it, but I mean, apart from that,
Hmm.
the issue it creates for the parents is that now they feel this immense pressure to give the necessary amount of time and dedication to their work and to being in school all day, or checking up all day with their child. And you know, it's a lot to balance. It really is a lot to balance. So they've put that pressure on themselves just because they really want to make sure their child does well. You see, all of it is so foreign to everybody, but
Yeah.
we have to remember that independent learning, and by that I mean leaving home, leaving the comfort of your home and mommy and daddy and everybody else, and going off alone into a classroom with miss, is how we develop. It's how we learn independent thinking, how we learn to socialize differently, how we learn to respect a different authority figure from mom and dad. It's not being spoon fed. Teachers are trained to teach in a certain way to
Yeah.
support cognitive development in a way that would be prepare us for the real world, for university, for work, etc. It's not the norm for us to have mom. I mean, as a child, I would have loved to have my mom sit in class with me and give me the answers and cheer me on. But guess what? She can't do that forever and ever. And at some point, I have to develop that independence. So when we don't allow them to do that, it actually stunts them more. So it
Yes.
is actually, parents should take that weight off and know that you're doing the right thing by leaving your child alone. However, if there is an issue with your child, again, I think parents and teachers have to continue to work together. And then Miss would say, you know, Mrs. Such and Such, I find that Junior, um, his grades have declined. What's happening? Maybe we need to get some support for him in the room. If your child has ADHD or some other
Yeah.
a learning disorder, disability that you know about, then of course that this generalization does not apply to you. We work with the schools to figure out what we should do. But otherwise,
But I like how you mentioned that because it just brings me to my last point. due to this online learning, and parents now they are able to see how their child is learning.
Yeah.
Now a lot of parents are now detecting that their child do have some sort of learning challenge. It's
Hmm.
now being brought to light. So COVID-19 and this online learning has actually exposed some of these learning challenges that students would have been
Hmm.
facing all along, but just
Hmm.
didn't really know. And now parents
Yes.
are being made aware. So how would you now, like you're a clinical psychologist, how do you now gauge, or if the parents who are looking on at this, they
Yeah.
can, what are their avenues and options now after knowing or thinking that their child may have some learning challenge or disability?
Yeah. Well, if there is, if you're recognizing that something is a little, that needs a little bit of attention, there are professionals who can properly and appropriately assess your child so that we're not self-diagnosing. I always warn against
Yeah.
self-diagnosing because things could look like things and not be things. It could be anxiety, it could be discomfort, it could be the child
Distraction.
just hasn't developed in terms of maturity and these things as yet. It could be so many things. So that's why there are trained professionals and there are specific things that we do to assess learning problems, right? Or to figure out what is creating any sort of behavioral or cognitive issue that your child seems to be having. So the avenues would be contact care center and say, this is what I'm concerned about. Can we have a chat and figure out what it might be? And then we start from the base and we move our way up. So we cross things out. We talk to the child, we talk to the parents, we figure out what has been happening, what else is happening in the child's life. And if all of the things rule out, we do a psychoeducational evaluation, and that would tell us where any intellectual, developmental, cognitive, or scholastic deficits lie, and create a profile of anything that might be impeding the child's ability to function at their full potential, whatever that full potential is. Because different children are different, they learn differently, and that's another thing. They might just not be responding to this type of learning. It might be as simple as that, and that's also fine. Some people need that in person, that kind of doing type of learning, and some people are quite good learning independently on their own. They have more self-control and so on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's so much. I
So
mean, we
much.
can't
It's a
say
lot.
everything right now, but there's so much,
For
that
sure,
goes
for
into
sure. Just to end off, I just want to say that statistics showed that some the top 10 challenges that students face with this online learning are adaptability, technical issues,
yeah,
computer knowledge. A lot of people aren't computer literate.
yeah.
Time management. We have
Mm.
self motivation, distraction, as you mentioned, learning styles. Everyone learn differently,
Mm-hmm.
communication, virtual engagement with the teacher one-on-one, and
Yes.
then feedback. So the child, they don't know, a lot of teachers don't even know how to assess or make assessments via online. Everyone, again, they're all learning how to adapt and adjust to this sudden
Yes.
change,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you, Kelly, for
You're so welcome.
for being with us and giving the advice, and we'll put your information below on this video. Okay, so
Sure.
thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.